Good morning, boys, girls and goobers. On today's news, I'm going to tell you all about the most powerful person in WWE, not named McMahon.
A new championship is coming to All Elite Wrestling next year.
Got some news on AEW's long-term booking plans for Miro.
And Tony Khan makes cryptic comments about the future of Mr. Brodie Lee. I'm Adam Wilborn and I've still got a mustache.
And I'm Addy Murray and I wish I had a mustache.
This is the news.
Well, let's kick things off by heading over to WWE for our first story today, talking about somebody who has been called the most powerful man in WWE who does not have the surname McMahon. It's not Paul Levesque. It's not, Randy Orton. It's not Cameron Grimes. It's Bruce Pritchard. We got a new report here from PW Insider, just kind of talking about the creative power that Bruce Pritchard has within the promotion at the moment. Apparently, WWE's creative direction is basically completely controlled by Bruce Pritchard and Vince McMahon at the moment, with some sources saying that Bruce's say in the company is considered the gospel for the WWE chairman and CEO. So as far as television goes, all ideas pass through Pritchard at the moment. He is, of course, the executive director for Raw and SmackDown. He was previously just that for SmackDown, but then they gave Paul Heyman kind of the boot, see you later, Paul, and Bruce took on that role earlier this year as well. Although this rise in power has apparently led to some unnamed personnel backstage in WWE venting their frustrations and generating a little bit of heat for the former brother love in private. There's also some other creative notes from this report here that we might as well cover as well, noting that McMahon has been taking a very hands-on approach with Drew McIntyre and his new ring entrance, which follows on from Drew's comment stating that the sword he is using actually belongs to Vince himself. Apparently Vince spent considerable time making sure that he got the sword-based ring entrance right. On top of all of this, the opening segment for this week's Raw, Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss, Randy Orton, that was apparently a Vince McMahon pet project, and while a number of people within the company said, hey, let's not do this, I don't like this, Vince went ahead with it regardless because he's Vince McMahon, he can do what the hell he wants. Of course, Pritchard's current WWE stint began in October 2019 when... 2019? Is that the right year?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I hope it is when him and Heyman came in as executive directors. Now it's just him pulling the strings, most powerful man in all of the land. Brother love, celebrate.
Mixed emotions about this. I'm an avid listener to the Something to Wrestle podcast with him and Conrad, of course. And at times you think, he's got a good, sensible, creative brain on his shoulders. And then other times you defend stuff and you think, oh no, you're really on the wrong side of history there, Bruce. But then again, Andy, I suppose anything that takes any element of creativity away from Vince McMahon is probably a good thing in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, WWE's creative process, there are so many moving parts, right, with this massive team of 90 million writers they have and everything else that comes with that. But Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard have always kind of been reported as this really close relationship. Bruce has, been quite... derogatory terms have been used to describe him as kind of like a yes man type figure, in that he's very in tune with what Vince wants. So whatever you think of WWE's creative output in 2020, with those two working together, it's probably a little bit more harmonious than Heyman and Vince was. Is it better? Is it worse? Well, that's subjective. That's for you to decide. But the two guys get along, and that's certainly a thing.
That's nice, yeah, exactly. I think we all agree WWE needs a complete creative overhaul, but just so long as it's not just Vince McMahon who has the overarching say. For the most part, of course, he does, it's his company, but he just needs someone who might occasionally go, I wouldn't do that, Vince. I really wouldn't do that. Whether or not Bruce is that guy, only time will tell, I suppose. But from WWE, let's transfer over to AEW, and something that fans have been asking for a long time seems to be heading our way in 2021. God, this moustache is mine. I grew it. The Trios titles, they are apparently in the works, set to arrive in AEW next year. This is according to company president Tony Khan, who is doing the Winter is Coming media conference call. Of course, AEW Winter is Coming tonight. It's going down. Khan, spoken about it, said, if it happens, it will likely be in 2021. I've been seriously thinking about it. There's a lot of momentum for it, and we have a lot of great trio teams. I'd like to get through 2020 to Breach Break and moving towards Revolution, but it's definitely on my agenda, and it's something I've been talking about format for a long time. Andy, I could list all the trios teams, but there's just so many of them. This makes complete sense.
Yeah, it does. This is something we feel like we've been talking about for like a year or something, and it felt like it was something that AEW was kind of moving towards at the onset of the Global Bastard, when Death Triangle were coming together, joining an already stacked roster of possible trios teams. There are just so many options that it makes perfect sense. I think if you're going to introduce another title in AEW, it has to be something like this. I don't think there's any need for another singles title, at least on the Dynamite level at the moment. Maybe you could do something on Dark. But this is the right move, I feel. I look forward to seeing how it would come together. It would also, give something for these like trios, guys like Death Triangle, SCU, Jurassic Express, to work towards when they're not going to be competing for tag titles and singles belts and stuff. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer, really, and it's something that WWE obviously doesn't have. So that sets them apart even more from their closest competition.
If you don't put the titles immediately on Murder Tripod, we riot.
Exactly, we will cry. Sticking with AEW, and Tony Khan's pre-winter is coming media conference call for a bit. He answered a question on Miro, like his creative direction in the company, which hasn't been entirely popular with the AEW fan base, it has to be said. Khan had some interesting comments on Miro here, talking about how he wants the former Bulgarian brute, the former Rusev, to become a big star in AEW. I've got an exact quotation here. Miro's going to be a big star here. It's really hard for people to come into AEW with the ranking system unless they come in at the start of a new year cycle. I didn't want to wait until January to bring Miro in. He does note that Brian Cage was an exception to this, but he adds that I can't do this for everybody and I wasn't going to do it again. So I just couldn't put Miro in the main event with no record and no history there. He went on saying that Miro would have to be built up with the right storylines and so forth, and saying that he didn't want to cast somebody in the main event aside to create a spot up there without the story and stuff, talking about guys like Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho and so forth. Another quote here, Miro is going to be a huge part of AEW, but just like everyone else, he has to win matches and get involved in stories. He also spoke on how the version that they had signed of Miro wasn't the same dude that came down to the ring in a tank at WrestleMania and so forth. I say and so forth so many goddamn times, but whatever. Drinking game, let's fire it up. WWE kind of grind him down over the past few years. There's a need to rebuild the dude, lift him up a little bit. I think what Tony's saying here makes great sense. And look, I've been very critical of the Miro stuff, the best man stuff, in my ups and downs column on the website and in these videos as well, in these news videos. Something you kind of have to temper it with a little bit when you say that the guy's being misused or whatever else is that Miro himself is seemingly very happy doing this if you look at his interviews and stuff, and he doesn't really care about the criticisms and stuff. That obviously doesn't get rid of those criticisms, but it's something to consider. Either way, I would like to see Miro doing a little bit more than kind of cruising around on the mid-card.
No, I think that's a fair assessment, Andy. I think, like you say, it's obviously great to see him being very happy, and we certainly heard reports of how miserable he was in WWE, so that's great. I just think, an element of it does have to go to AEW, because as much as they're like, we do, we wanted to bring him in, but we were waiting for the reset at the start of the year, kind of done nothing with him. Like, we're all sat here going, right, you brought him in, you've had this sort of on-off feud with the best friends, which has kind of been kept mostly to TV, and hasn't really gone anywhere, if we're perfectly honest. I think we just need, by the end of the year, to get to the wedding, to get to the stag do, to get to the presumable turn on Kip Sabian, so we can really launch that character in 2021. But there's still hope, I reckon. I think, we saw what Rusev was capable of turning into gold in WWE, and that was when they were just completely booking against him almost. So if you give him stuff that he can actually work with and he can be involved in, I do sense that we can do something with him, but you need that launch pad, which could well be the inevitable wedding turn on Kip Sabian. But from Miro to Mr. Brodie Lee. Of course, we haven't seen him since he lost that dog collar match in October, losing the TNT Championship back to Cody Rhodes. Last month we had the report he was suffering from an ankle injury, and Tony Khan on this media call again sort of cryptic about the future of Brodie Lee. I'm not suggesting that he's not going to return, but there's no word on when he will come back. But Tony Khan saying that he expects to welcome Brodie back before long. He called him one of the promotion's top wrestlers. I can sort of get where he's coming from here, Andy, because I felt like if he said, oh yeah, no, he'll be back tonight, and Winter is coming, it would kind of ruin everything, and you sense when he does return, it's going to be impactful.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something big for sure. The Brodie Lee situation, there was talk of that injury and so forth. I've said and so forth again. Jesus Christ, Andy, stop it. But I'm in favour of the idea of kind of cycling people off television every now and then. You've been in the spotlight, you've just had your TNT title run while Cody was away. You had that cracking dog collar match and the squash, which was just awesome stuff as well. It's like you say often, make people miss the performers. If you don't have something for them to do, you don't need to keep them kind of plodding around on the mid-card. You can just take them away for a little bit, bring them back, cycle them back in. That's an effective way to manage a very stacked roster, and the AEW roster is pretty damn huge now. It's grown a lot since the company's inception, so I'm looking forward to seeing Brodie Lee back. I think him and the Dark Order really turned a corner not long after Brodie's debut. The stable's really, really sick now. They've got the comedy side of it with John Silver and all that stuff, but you've got young rising prospects like Anna Jay, and Brodie Lee's just a bloody beast. He's been awesome. Looking forward to seeing him come back, and yeah, I think he'll do something big as well.
And it's not like the Dark Order haven't been represented, as you said there. Like, yes, the leader isn't there, but you got John Silver, Anna Jay had a shot at the title, Evil Uno's just, constantly popping up and trying to recruit Hangman Page. So they are still a topic of conversation, which will arguably make it even bigger when Brodie Lee does return. Looking forward to that. Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions, because Andy, I mustache you these questions at WhatCulture WWE. Of course, you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Matt Ryan, who says, with the very possible sighting of Omega beating Moxley for the AEW World Championship, who would be your ideal first challenger for the Cleaner? Have a terrific day. You have a terrific day too, Matt. But who do you want to face? Who do you want the Cleaner to face if he does become world champion, Andy?
You have a lovely one, Matthew. This is something I haven't really thought of, but I do think that Kenny Omega will win the belt tonight, and I think he'll do it clean with minimal shenanigans. First opponent, all right, Lance Archer. He's currently involved with Murder Tripod and Eddie Kingston's family and so forth. I've said and so forth again. But, he was setting his sights on the AEW World title, and then he contracted the Bastard, and there's been some complications here and there. I think that he will play a role in beating Eddie Kingston and his group in some way, and then I think he'd be a really good TV challenger, maybe for Beach Break in January.
Yeah, I think I like the booking of, and so I heard Sidgwick and you mention this in the past, of Moxley having a shot back at the title at Revolution 2 out of 3 falls, which could, genuinely be a match of the year contender, considering certainly Omega's history in those sorts of matches. If you're not going to do that, 1 word, 3 letters, Pac. Just give it Pac, because you know that they would make a great match. And if you're going to do that, let's say at Revolution, you've got plenty of time to deal with the whole Eddie Kingston side of things. So intriguing to see what they do next, and can't wait to see what happens in that world title match. Maybe Moxley retains. I sincerely doubt it, but maybe Moxley retains. Second question today comes from J-Man, who says, greetings, gents. Simple question. Has WWE ruined Bray Wyatt as The Fiend, or is there still hope? Would love to hear your take on this.
Oh, brother. So full disclosure, I don't like The Fiend. It's not my kind of thing, what I like from pro wrestling. It doesn't fit my taste. However, I think that's ruined would be a subjective take in this case, because objectively, you still see loads and loads of people online and on Reddit, on Twitter and various other places who just love this character and are totally into the Alexa Bliss thing in particular. So I wouldn't use the word ruined. It's just something that's not really for my personal taste, and you might well be on the same boat. No one can take that away from you, because the consumption of art and the enjoyment of art is subjective. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So I wouldn't use the word ruined. I think that it's a very hard character for a lot of people to swallow, and it's never going to be for those people. But I think that the volume of people who are still invested in The Fiend and love Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss and everything else speaks for itself.
Yeah, I still like it in small doses, I have to say. I still think there are elements of it that it's still good. He needs to destroy Randy Orton, in my opinion. Me and Hamlet were talking about this on the Raw Preview podcast, saying how a Firefly Funhouse match akin to what he did to John Cena, where he just murks Randy Orton, and I don't know, maybe makes Randy Orton RKO himself at the end or something, just because of his spookiness, would be good. I do believe the whole Alexa Bliss angle has really breathed new life into this character, and I like him being away necessarily from the world title picture. I think this is the right direction for him to be going in, because it's just, unbeatable monster clown thing Yeah, I don't really want as my world champion, but I like being involved in all these other side feuds. So I still think there's elements there that I can enjoy, and it's well, he's in a better position than when he just got jobbed out to Goldberg, let's be perfectly honest. Final question today comes from Mark Solid, who says, morning boys, brackets, Scottish accent optional. Okay. Morning boys. What are your thoughts on when Drew eventually turns heel, giving him Heyman as a manager? He could turn on Roman and flee to Raw.
I'm sure that was a great question, Mark. I did not understand a word of the
Your
delivery.
language, mate. It's your language. Heyman as Drew's heel manager.
Why am I stuck on this? It's the thing with Paul Heyman at the moment is we've already kind of done the thing with him kind of not leaving Brock Lesnar, but going towards one of Brock's old enemies in Roman. I think that you could use that to effectively build a feud between babyface Brock and Drew. You could have Brock come back and be like, hey, you turned on me twice. You're going with these guys I don't like, and I don't like that, Paul. Maybe do Heyman in a shark cage above the ring or something. That'd be a bit mental. But yeah, I mean, I could see it being quite effective, although I think that Drew will be a babyface for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I don't see him turning heel anytime soon. And I do believe when he does turn heel, I don't think he needs a manager. I'm not saying Roman needs a manager either. I just love the visual of that. I feel like it would just be a copy if you had Heyman there, because Heyman would stand there, Drew would still cut mint promos, and Heyman would look terrified at this other monster that he's created. So yeah, I don't think we need to worry about this, though. As Andy said, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Let's move on to today's and finally. I just want to send a massive thank you to everyone who's tagging WhatCulture WWE on Twitter with all their screenshots of, you know, your most listened to things on Spotify. Just looking at random ones here. Thanks to Index JW, says, is this the best podcast ever? It is. Matt Kerno, but my favourite one so far has come from Sasu. Thank you, Sasu. Who says, thank you for helping me get through 2020. 796 episodes, 37,608 minutes of my bloody voice, along with all the other guys who do the What Culture Wrestling podcast. It's a big team effort here. That is quite the achievement, Andy.
That's like 2 a day, right? That's awesome. That's awesome. It was a real joy to kind of wake up and see all these posts this morning. So thank you guys for sticking with us. It's been, it's been a crap year for a lot of people. It's been a really weird year in so many different ways. So, we are very, very thankful to have all of you, all of the guys who interact with us, all those who just listen and so forth. You all rule, and we love you.
As with everything we do here at What Culture, not just the podcast, videos, website, etc., without you, we wouldn't be getting paid to do this bollocks. So thank you very much. But yeah, Sasu, incredible achievement. Almost as incredible as this amazing moustache that I've grown. But let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. We're going to be previewing the Wednesday Night War, including, of course, AW Winter is coming later on today. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Actually, there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for, hey, the end is in sight.
Oh, what news to wake up to today, Andy.
Beautiful.
Nearly there. Follow me on Twitter at AdamWill1. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.